me know when I should get going.
Good.
Hello and welcome. This is the Commute Seattle training for the CTR training, the Commute Trip Reduction Survey Training. Please let Billy know if you cannot hear us. Otherwise, we'll continue forward. So there are a couple of people in the room. I just want to introduce the transportation specialists with Commute Seattle real quick, but since this is a technical training, we're going to be going through this pretty quickly, and there's not too much time for networking. Please note, though, that we have many other trainings and more sort of events that are focused on networking and connecting with other ETCs at other companies. We try to make those available at other times during the year so you can learn best practices from other people. But since this is a technical training and we want to take your time very seriously, we're going to get through this as best we can. Do you have slide control or do I?
You have all the control.
So my name is Patrick Green. I'm a transportation specialist with Commute Seattle. I've been here for just around 7 or 8 months.
My name is Billy Dukes. I'm also a transportation specialist. I've been here about 1.5 years now. I'm the old guy on the team, and work primarily with work sites that are not that are either Pioneer Square or outside of the center city.
And I'm Kobe Zeisman. I am also a transportation specialist, and I've been here just under a month. So I appreciate your patience.
So brief agenda for the day. So we just went through a little introduction. Billy's going to cover why commute trip reduction and why this is an important kind of ordinance for the city in the midst of all this growth. We're going to cover survey overview and process, the different respondent access methods, and then of course we're going to have some time for questions. Go ahead, Billy.
So the question that a lot of people sometimes have is, why commute trip reduction? Why do we even do this? You guys probably, most of you know the basics of the law. It was passed as part of the Clean Air Act back in the 90s by the state, basically trying to address greenhouse gas emissions from vehicle traffic, which is the biggest source in the area, as well as some traffic congestion issues. And really in the last couple of years, CTR work has become even more important in Seattle, where we're just experiencing a booming city. So we have the most cranes 2 years in a row compared to any other city. So we have more cranes building buildings than New York or Boston combined, and more than any other city. We've actually had this 2 years in a row now, this distinction of being the fastest growing city. And we're adding commercial real estate as fast as possible to the point where we're almost out of real estate capacity in downtown specifically, kind of the biggest crunch point. And the city's starting to look into other areas to figure out how to expand that because there are only so many blocks that we have downtown and so many towers that we can build. We're building them as fast as we can and really just not keeping pace. Seattle is going through a giant population boom as well. The Seattle Times did an article a couple months back, and we officially surpassed 700,000 people. It only took about 6 years to add that last 100,000 people. We're actually booming. We're experiencing a faster population boom than any other point in Seattle's history, including the gold rush when we were first started as a city. So with that kind of unprecedented growth and unprecedented demand, it really means that people are finding jobs and needing to get to work, and our roadways are at capacity. So in the last 6 years, since Commute Seattle has really started kind of working citywide, we've been working downtown for a little bit longer than that. We've kind of experienced that job growth. Anyone who was here in 2009, 2010, comparing what the skyline looks like to now, you can see a giant difference. In the downtown area, really just downtown South Lake Union has added 45,000 jobs in those 6 years. In the meantime, we've actually reduced the drive-alone rate in the city of Seattle from 30 to 35%. primarily because of what you see here with the transit, with kind of transit riders, people taking the bus into work or taking the train into work. Over that 6 years where we've added the 45,000 jobs, we've only added about 2,200 cars to the road, single occupancy cars to the road during those peak commutes. What that kind of says to us is, one, there's a roadway capacity issue. We don't have space to build more roads, so we have to use those roads more efficient, which is really where kind of transit has come in a big way and really has absorbed most of those new jobs and those new morning commutes. What that really means for us, for the CTR work that we do and for the ETCs that we work with, like you guys, is that you guys are really doing the hard work and kind of the unglamorous work of handling a lot of this growth. You're kind of setting up HR policies and practices to get more ORCA passes into people's hands. You're setting up more flexible telework policies or policies where people can come in a little bit earlier, a little bit later in the day to avoid that peak congestion period. Building more bike racks and more things like that. The city is slowly working on adding more bike lanes to make it safer getting through downtown. Later this summer, they're going to extend the 2nd Avenue bike lane from where it ends right now at Pike Street all the way up to the Seattle Center, which will provide a protected bike route from the International District all the way through downtown up to Belltown, and kind of doing that. But really the big thing is the work that what you're doing, onboarding new employees, telling them about the bus, getting them ORCA passes, really encouraging them to do, and that's really the only way that we've been able to grow as a city, is being able to shift a lot of those people from driving alone maybe in their old job in their old city in Denver or something like that, to their new job, their new commute, and making sure that their first thought is to take the bus into work rather than sitting in traffic and making congestion that much worse. So this is kind of, I alluded to this earlier, we do our Center City mode split every 2 years, kind of combining the CTR data that we get from these surveys with you guys. We also go out and do small business outreach and kind of interview people who work for smaller non-CTR effective businesses, asking them the same questions, how they got to work, and figure out how people are getting to downtown. 6 years ago, we were at a 35% drive-alone rate. We set a 10-year goal saying we want to get it down to 30% by 2020. We achieved that in 6 years, thanks to the work that you guys are all doing, and really that kind of our hat goes off to the work and everything that you're doing. And we've actually been able to do this to lower our drive-alone rate when similar cities of similar sizes like Denver have actually seen the exact opposite, where their drive-alone rate has gone from about 35% to about 40% in that same time period. More people are actually driving downtown, and in Seattle we're making the kind of the smarter choice of more people riding the bus, more people biking to work and everything like that, getting rid of their single occupancy cars, not getting rid of them, but at least for that commute period to take something else in. So thank you. That's kind of a little context for the survey, for the commute trip reduction work that we do. And we'll pass it back to Patrick for kind of going over what's the survey process going to look like.
So if that is the end result, we'll get down to the nuts and bolts. First off, so who do you need to survey? So first off, all CTR affected employees must be surveyed. So that means, what's a CTR affected employee? Some of you already know this already. They work 35 hours or more in a week. They arrive at a single work site from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. They work on two or more days a week, and they are in the position for intended to last 12 consecutive months. So that means no interns, swing shift, probably not, are outside those peak work hours of 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. Any sort of seasonal workers, for example, would not be counted. Despite those being the people that you must at least send the survey to, it's preferred that you send the survey to all employees, and that's because for one, administratively, it might be slightly easier not to segment your employees, trying to pull out those, for some businesses, it's a little bit difficult to pull out those peak hourly workers. And also, from the perspective of the state and the city, they're looking for the best data. So how are people getting to work? And with the CTR affected, that might be a smaller number, but it is a lot easier actually to survey everybody. So this is the survey, and this is the general format. It's a little on the, I guess the polite way to say it, old side. But it's basic and it gets the job done. It takes roughly 5 minutes to complete. It's a snapshot of commuter habits over a 1 week period. It's a survey of the previous week, so if you started your survey this week, you're actually answering questions about your last week's habits, or how you actually got to work Monday through Friday. You can survey online or with paper, and the access methods, if you do it online, are using the email domain and email upload. And those last 2 bullet points I'm about to cover right now, or in a second. Just a brief overview of the survey process. The first step, most of the companies have already filled it out. It's the pre-survey form. We're still looking for about 25% of the CTR companies to submit that pre-survey form. So if you're on the call and you haven't submitted the form, please do so, and we're happy to answer questions about that. So that the pre-survey form essentially schedules the survey with us, tells us what dates you'd like to survey. It gives us the CTR contacts, which is the employee transportation coordinator, which is yourself, a surrogate, which is the other CTR contact, and then the highest ranking CTR official. And it also provides us with the employee count, CTR affected and total employee count. Step 2 is Commute Seattle schedules the survey in the WSDOT survey tool, and then we send you a confirmation. That confirmation will include your login, your password, and also a template if you've chosen email upload access for uploading that into the tool. The ETC sends out a survey on the scheduled date, and we actually provide you with a communication template if you don't want to write one up. Then we provide you with all of that. ETC monitors the response rate, so with your administrative access that we provided in the confirmation email, you can check in to make sure that you reach the target response rate of 70%. City of Seattle has asked for companies to reach a 70% response rate. That provides the best data and definitely excludes any sort of respondent bias that might occur within a company. It basically gets a healthy amount of data. It's an excellent snapshot. But from WSDOT's perspective, they'll accept anything less than 50% without some sort of penalty.
And I'll step in here too. Anyone who surveyed 2 years ago or in previous cycles might remember that WSDOT used to do a fill-in penalty, where if you hit somewhere between 50 and 70%, they assumed the last chunk of respondents drove alone. WSDOT is no longer doing that. So if you do hit 60%, you're not going to get hit with that 10% penalty. They're just going to base the drive alone rate off that 60% respondent. So the minimum is 50%. If you don't hit that, you have to survey again. The goal is 70% for best data, but there isn't that fill-in penalty like there was in previous years.
Quick question on monitoring the response. Will we be able to see who's actually responded so we know who we can follow up with, or is it anonymous?
We'll get into that it depends on if you've done email upload access or domain access, and we'll dive a little bit more into that. And then so once you've hit that response rate target, or once you've hit 2 weeks, then we will close the survey on our end. We'll use our access to close it. Then we send the results, or basically all the responses, to WSDOT for processing. They provide us with a PDF, and that takes about 2 to 4 weeks for WSDOT to process that. It can take a little bit because a lot of companies throughout the state are actually surveying in the fall. So it does take WSDOT just a little bit just to get through all those. So this answers your question, Sharma. There are 2 ways for employees to access the survey. First is uploading with an Excel file. And so basically we provide you with a template that WSDOT's created in Excel. It is basically in the left column, it is the email of the employee, and in the right column, it's the work site. So it'll be wonderwoman@justiceleague.com is the email, and Justice League is the work site. The only uploaded emails will be able to access the survey, so if that email is spelled wrong in some sort of way, that person will not be able to access it. And you will have the ability to run reports within the survey tool on who has been responsive and non-responsive. And so that way you can actually segment your emails when you want to ping them again. Yeah.
And we do have copies. Some companies are concerned about doing this email upload and concerns about privacy of their employees' emails and things like that. We have copies of all the WSDOT privacy policies. We can pass those along to you. We did have a conversation with the folks over at WSDOT asking them again specifically about this issue. And they said they only use those emails during the survey period itself to allow access to just those individuals who do that. They don't use those emails for communicating to anyone else. Those emails are considered proprietary information, so they're not open to any sort of public disclosure or anything like that that would be attempted. And as soon as the survey process closes and the results are processed, they disassociate those emails from the server that they're using. So they do take a lot of steps to protect the privacy of those emails. They don't communicate those emails at all or anything like that. So.
Is there any language to that in the template that you guys have drafted?
There isn't in the template, but there is in the privacy policy that WSDOT provided us. So
we would attach that
You can attach
for those
that
people
for-
that are interested. Okay.
Yeah.
Just let us know if you'd like it.
Well, I'm just thinking better to have it because I'll probably have that one person,
Yeah.
and I just would rather be armed as opposed to not having it.
Yeah, I can pass it to you.
Thank you.
The next way to access is through a email domain. So if you want to use email domain, you would have indicated it within the pre-survey responses and in that initial form that we sent out. And the email domain, if you're not familiar, is just after the @ symbol. It's what all the employees at your company have, and it basically indicates which company you are to the server. For Wonder Woman at justiceleague.com, it would be at justiceleague.com. If you have multiple domains in your company, it would be helpful if you told us, because we have to enter those in individually. So some companies, after a merger, for example, might absorb several different domains. This is especially true for real estate firms. Any email domain can have access. So so it could be at justiceleague.com, it could be Batman at justiceleague.com, Superman at justiceleague.com. It doesn't even actually have to be a real email address. As long as it has at justiceleague.com, that person will be able to access. And sadly, it does not allow you to target your survey communications if you do domain access, because it's not actually recording those emails. There is another report if you'd like to run incentives.
So with domain access, you can run a report saying who has filled out the survey itself. You can't run a report saying who hasn't filled out the survey because they don't have that initial list to pull from. Yeah.
Back to the email upload, what's the time frame for when we would need to upload those emails before our survey date?
It's a good question. Some places with a lot of turnover will actually wait until the week before, because that number is constantly changing.
Right.
And I would say if you don't have a lot of turnover, I would just do it on the sooner side, especially if it takes a while to actually get that list from your HR team or whoever actually holds the keys to that information. But it's one of those administrative tasks. From my perspective, I would get it done early. But again, if your company has a lot of turnover or is expecting a lot of onboarding to happen, then I would wait until the end, right before the survey.
There isn't a time where it would reject it or it would be too late or something?
No,
Because it's like closed or something.
And throughout the survey too, if you get an email from an employee saying, hey, I tried to log in and it didn't give me, and I didn't have access, you can actually go in and make sure you click the append button and not the replace button, because that clears out all the previous surveys. But you can append extra email addresses into the list if you get feedback like that.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like our new hires will be more likely to want to do this than our existing employees, so I want to make sure I am.
They're going to be like above that.
Yeah.
I already did this.
Right. Okay.
Years ago.
Yeah. But in their mind, it's done.
Lastly, there are paper or hybrid surveys. Hybrid
I'm
is,
not even telling my people about the paper option.
and that's what we encourage. Paper is not ideal. Mainly the burden of making sure that those paper surveys are in one mint condition, fully filled out, done with a number 2 pencil. There's no creases, no stains. That's all on the ETC. We do not have the ability to do that in-house. So if you have requested paper surveys, please, we'll be talking with you in the next week or two about what that process looks like. If you have requested paper surveys and you think that online surveys are possible, we highly encourage it. These are typically reserved for sites where the employees don't have an email. It's very difficult for them to access computers, such as manufacturing, anything where a lot of the employees report to the same site in the morning but then go remote and don't have access to some sort of online system. And that's about that. That's about it for that.
We had much better response rates after online was available.
Oh, excellent.
In the ancient world, when we only had paper surveys, it was grueling to get them out.
Yeah, I would think it would be.
So just a brief overview. We answer this question a lot. The ETC sends the link. The Washdot tool cannot send the link or send an email, and we do not send the email. We do not necessarily want to have access to all of your employees' emails. So this is definitely, the survey access is definitely coming from the employee transportation coordinator. The target response rate is 70%, but the lowest you can go is 50%.
Let me pause you on that for a second, Patrick. So what if it's still within the 2-week period? Does it automatically stop when 70 is reached, or does it keep going?
Stays open for the 2-week period.
Okay.
Stays open until
The 2 weeks have ended.
until the 2 weeks is done. If you get 100% response, awesome.
Yeah.
You won't.
I know.
Most
I, I'd be happy with 75.
but yeah, it'll stay open until 70%.
Okay.
Yep, exactly. 2 weeks are allowed for the survey. Notify Commute Seattle when the response rate is reached, so please check in with the survey tool and get to know it.
We do. I realized we didn't add a bullet point for this, but we do start all of our surveys in the city of Seattle on Tuesdays as well. That's something to keep in mind. When we were doubling up with Mondays, we were overloading Washdot servers. And since Seattle is a quarter of the CTR affected work sites, we switched over to starting on Tuesdays to reduce kind of server capacity issues. So we won't have any of those, but we do start on Tuesdays, and then you've got that entire week and the entire following week to do your survey.
And then we are the people who close the surveys, so we're in close communication with you throughout the process. And if you have any questions during the process, any sort of email access issues, we can help you troubleshoot those as well. All right, I'd like to open it up for questions.
And if you're online, there's a little chat icon at the top of your window. You can type in your question there. I'll also try and unmute all the phones from here to see if that will help.
I have a question about who to survey now that we have so many people who work from home. An option for, avoiding vehicles. But now we have people who either never or maybe once a month or once a quarter come into the office. They don't even have assigned workspaces in
Right.
the office anymore.
For that, I would So sometimes we focus so much on the survey that we forget what the survey is intended to do, and that's to basically inform you and hopefully the city as well about what people's habits are. Technically they would not be a CTR affected employee anymore. However, it's really up to you and what kind of information you would like to have, and that's to guide your own policies. So if it's helpful to communicate to your company who's taking advantage of this, how is this reducing either parking infrastructure or other transportation benefits, or maybe even there could be a separate policy on teleworking and you want to know what the effectiveness is. This is a good opportunity to indicate not only to the company but to the city as well as who's taking advantage of this kind of thing, and that's really what commute trip reduction is intended to do. So excellent that people are taking advantage of it. That's what we're looking for, but also they technically wouldn't be considered. So I would say survey them just so you can communicate out what the policies are.
Well, and I think
It
they'll
is their
think.
choice. I mean,
Well,
we don't hire anyone specifically to work.
right.
You know, you can't work in the office. It's
Yeah.
definitely a choice, and commute often is the largest.
And they'll see the criteria.
Yeah,
So,
criteria
the
based,
criteria
yeah.
will be available to them in the survey, so they know, oh, yeah, this does apply to me,
Yeah.
so I need to take it. And if it's, we call them the WFH people, the work from home people, and so if they are WFH, then they can be like, oh, this really doesn't apply, and then they can choose to disregard. And then before I ping them again, I have a list of my WFHs that I can be like, okay, I don't need to ping that person.
And in the survey results themselves, so the tool itself can make the determination whether or not the employee is technically a CTR affected employee, and it gives you information on just those employees and then all employees as well. So you can see kind of the segment who are teleworking every day. You can see that kind of split.
I also have very literal-minded people who will read that question about, are you required to, or are you required to arrive between 6 and 9 a.m.? They can come in whenever they want.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But if they typically, it's hard to educate them, but if you typically work those hours, answer the survey, not because you are required.
And the way the question is worded in the tool is what days did you arrive to work between 6 and 9 a.m. So you can
They self-select, and then the tool parses them out.
Any questions online either? You should be unmuted, hopefully. Otherwise, feel free to use the chat box.
When will we get the link?
You should be getting the link as soon as we set up the survey tool on our end. So if you filled out your pre-survey on SurveyMonkey and it's been maybe 2 or 3 weeks, send us an email and we'll double check on that, but you should get the link as soon as we set it up in the state tool.
Do you know how many questions or how long the survey is? I'm just wondering how many would, think that it would be a long or a time-consuming thing. Some people are kind of fussy about that kind of stuff.
We can send you a mock survey.
Okay.
Well, Billy's sending out the presentation too, which had a snippet of the survey.
It's about 12 questions. It takes no more than 5 minutes to fill out.
Oh, okay,
it's
that's
a pretty
perfect.
quick survey,
Okay.
pretty low ask to do.
Okay, no, that's
And if
perfect.
you-
I was just
if you
wondering
did-
because...
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I just needed to ask that.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions at all?
I got on maybe 10 minutes late. Did I miss anything?
We're recording this, so I'll send out as a follow-up to everyone that RSVP'd today the recording of the seminar itself.
Okay, so I can listen to it over again in case I missed something?
Exactly, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. I'll give about 10 more seconds to volunteer questions on over the phone.
And you said this isn't mandatory, but this is encouraged so that we can see how their commute is?
So the survey itself is mandatory.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So the survey itself is mandatory. It's mandatory to survey the CTR Effective Employees. What we recommend, just to save on some work for you, as well as to get a little bit more accurate data, is just to survey all employees. That's kind of the optional part, whether or not you want to include all employees. But this survey is mandatory as part of the state's commute trip reduction law. So yeah.
Okay, and then you said the target response rate is 70%, and the minimum is 50%, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And I'm sorry, you said service mandatory is the state. I'm sorry, what was that?
It's part of the state's commute trip reduction law.
State commute reduction law. Thank you. Commute
Yep.
reduction. I'm taking notes, sorry.
No, that's fine. And if you want to email me, I'll send a follow-up after this with the recording. If you have any specific questions after that, feel free to email me and I'll be able to answer them for you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, with that, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for doing the great work that you do. This is, I know sometimes it can be a little bit
Daunting.
burdensome. We've heard other words. But this work actually is, it gets a lot done, and it actually makes a better life for both people in the city, your employees, and as well as the planet. So thank you very much.
I do see one question online. Are there any issues accessing the survey for companies with stricter security or firewall settings? I have not experienced that in the surveys that I've administered before. I haven't heard that from anyone else either. You can, in our communication template, we do have a communication that you can send to IT to let them know. But as long as you have general internet access, it's not a Google form, it's not anything like that that's blocked by most IT departments. It's a survey that's housed on the washed out server, so it looks legitimate to any sort of IT setup that you would have. So I haven't heard of any issues about that.
Okay, with that, I think we will stop recording. Thank